Hi, I'm Danielle, and welcome to How to Read a Journal Article. How do you feel when you're looking at an academic journal article? Perhaps the words overwhelmed, intimidated, or lost might come to mind. This is a very common feeling for students just starting their college journey. However, there are some strategies that can help make the process of reading journal articles a little easier and less time consuming. As students, you may need to read journal articles to learn more about current research in your area of study, but it's worth keeping in mind that you are not the main audience. Journal articles are typically written by academics or researchers in a specific field for other experts in the same field. This means that first, you are not expected to understand every word of an article, and second, you don't have to read every word. So here are my top 3 tips for reading journal articles. First, always read the article's abstract or summary to decide whether it's worth your time to continue reading. This is going to be a short excerpt that's labeled and is at the beginning of an article. While you're reading the abstract, ask yourself, do I understand what's being said? If the language is too technical or the article's topic is too far beyond your current understanding, the article is not right for you right now. If you do understand, in general, what the article is about, but it doesn't fit well with your own essay or assignment that you need to apply it to, let it go and move on. There's plenty more research out there for you to discover that will be more appropriate. Second, if you understand and the article is relevant to your needs, scan the headings. Journal articles are usually separated into at least 2 or 3 different sections. Although what the sections are called can vary from article to article, these are just a few examples of section headings you might come across. Regardless of the section titles, articles will always have a beginning that introduces the main topic and the author's goals, a middle where the authors explore their topic, and an end that summarizes the author's main takeaways. The middle of an article may include formulas, tables of data, and jargon that's specific to that area of research. This information is mainly for other experts, so don't worry about understanding it all. Most of what you need will be in the beginning of the article and at the end. So keep an eye out for headings like introduction or background and conclusion or discussion. Once you've finished scanning all of the headings, so you have an idea of how the article is organized, you can skim those key sections of the article for essential information. Most articles will include pretty clear statements about the population or group the authors are writing about, the goals or what the authors were trying to do, maybe the question that the authors were asking before they started their research. Both of these are often right near the beginning of an article. There will be a statement about the process the authors followed to achieve their goals. This is often at the end of the introduction or at the beginning of a method section. This is where they describe what exactly they did to try to find answers to their research question. Finally, there'll be a statement about the findings or what the authors say they learned from their research. Often they will say something like, we found, or the results show. By skimming for this essential information, you'll learn who, what, and how of the article. Then you can always come back later and read the entire article from top to bottom if you want to or if you need to. But first, it's important just to get these essential pieces of information. These are the main things you need to know. Now let's look at an example of an article and try out these tips. So here we have a journal article from the British Journal of Social Work. We can see that it has a pretty standard layout on the first page here with an abstract that is very clearly labeled. Now I have read the abstract and I've decided that I do understand more or less what it's saying, and I think that it is applicable to my essay on the strength-based approach in social work. So now I can scan the entire article to look at the headings and just see how this article is laid out. I've highlighted all of the headings in green so we can see that there's, again, a pretty standard labeling system for this article. We've got an introduction here, followed by a method section which has some subtitles which we can pick out because they are not bolded like the main headings are. There is also a results section with some more subheadings. And like I mentioned earlier, there are some tables, graphs, images that maybe we don't fully understand, but that's completely okay. We'll just skim past them for now and look for some more headings. So, all the way near the bottom of the article, we've got a discussion, which I've highlighted in green, and then we also have a very brief conclusion at the very end. So now that we know how this article is organized, we can go all the way back up to the top and skim for that essential information. You may have noticed earlier that toward the end of the introduction, I've highlighted in yellow the population or who this article is about, social work and social care practitioners. Later on in the introduction, we have the goals or what the researchers were trying to do, which is understand how existing strengths based models are being applied in the social work and social care arena in England. So, this often happens where researchers will very clearly state their goal by either saying, our goal is, or something like this, where it says the overarching aim is, and then they will state very clearly what they were trying to do. We can also see not too far away that right at the beginning of the methods section is where we will find information about the process the researchers took to try to find answers to their questions. So, this is the how of the article. So, what they did was they analyzed free text answers from an online survey, and they also did individual semi structured interviews. Now, again, we will slide all the way to the very end of the article where we can see in the discussion, I've highlighted a number of things here. So this is the findings, or what did the authors learn? Did they accomplish the goal that they had at the beginning of their research? What did they learn from their research? And again, this will often be very clearly stated in a phrase like findings from this study, or our research indicated, or this research found. There's often very clear statements like that. And in this case, because they were doing a mixed method approach and they had interviews, they've got a few findings to share with us. We can also read the conclusion to see if they sum up all of their findings into one neat and tidy sentence. This does happen sometimes, but not always. In this case, I decided that including the variety of findings from the authors was more meaningful to my research than taking anything from the conclusion this time. We can take a look at one more article just to see another example of how a journal article might be laid out. So this is another social work related article. Again, on the first page, we have a labeled abstract that I've kind of outlined here. Instead of an introduction, you can see our first section is labeled background and significance. That's another common way to label kind of an introduction or first paragraph or first few pages of an article. After that, instead of a methods section, we have a literature review. Oftentimes, journal articles will start off with a literature review. This is kind of an extended version of an introduction where the authors are giving you more background about why they chose to do the research that they did. After the literature review, they're describing a little bit more their population, which was refugees. We can take some information from here if we feel it's relevant to our research. Finally, almost halfway through the article, we see that they also do have a methods section. They titled it Program Evaluation Methods. So there's a little hint in that heading itself that there must have been some sort of program that they delivered with these refugees, and that part of this research article is them evaluating how effective that program was at doing whatever the goal was of the program. So I've highlighted here some information that we might want to take from this method section. Shortly after that, they share their results. Again, pretty common way to label this section. They gave some more detail in the heading here by calling it a paired samples analysis. But at the end of the day, what really matters is that this is the results section. We've got more tables of data as expected in a results section that we're just going to skim past again so that we can get to the discussion where again we've got this very clear one sentence statement, results indicate that. So that's a very clear indication that this is the findings, or what the authors found through their research in this article. We'll scroll down to the end just to make sure that there are no additional sections, and we see we've gotten to the reference page. So that discussion section is the last one in this article. So I highly recommend that when you're reading journal articles, you highlight the way that I did in my examples, or that you write down the information that you find as you go, so that when it comes time for you to incorporate that information into your own paper or assignment, you don't have to go back and reread the entire journal article again. You can just look at your highlighted portions or your own notes and incorporate those into your assignment. Here are the resources I consulted while creating this presentation. Thank you for watching, and we hope to see you again soon.